Invite Jan Kubiak to light our chalice. We at the Unitarian Universalist Church light a chalice to signal sacred space. Wrote, "You can shed a tear that she is gone, or you can smile because she lived. You can close your eyes and pray that she will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that she has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see her, or you can be full of the love that you share. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember her and only that she's gone, or you can cherish her memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what she would want, smile, open your eyes, love, and go on." Dear friends, we have gathered here today to celebrate the life and to mourn the death of Stephanie Ann Kubiak LaRoche, a devoted mother, a doting grandmother, a caring and compassionate friend. To celebrate life is not to ignore the real pain and sorrow Stephanie's death has caused all of you who loved her. It is not to ignore the permanence of her absence. To celebrate life is to acknowledge the fullness of Stephanie's time with us, the light as well as the shadows, the joy as well as the challenges, the triumphs and the failures, and everything in between. To celebrate life is to say, yes, Stephanie, you were unique. You were precious. Your life mattered. And while we may grieve our loss, we will not forget the joy it gave us to love you. It is an uneasy balance we want to share, honoring both the joy Stephanie brought to all of you and the sadness her death has caused. We know the truth of William Blake's words, joy and woe are woven fine. Under every grief and pine runs a joy with silken twine. It is right for it to be so, for we were made for joy and love. and wrote, "The tide recedes, but leaves behind bright seashells on the sand. The sun goes down, but gentle warmth still lingers on land. The music stops, and yet it lingers on in sweet refrain. For every joy that passes, something beautiful remains." I would like to invite Joyce Fletcher forward to share her eulogy.
I'm Joyce, one of Steph's younger sisters. Steph was the second of the four Kubiak girls. Carol came first, then 21 months later, Steph, or Steffi Ann as she was known to differentiate herself from our mom. 5 years later, I was born, and then 5 years after that, the baby of the family, Jan, was born. So if Carol was the serious, go-by-the-rules daughter, Steph was definitely the girls just want to have fun. She was the big, vivacious one, the one who trailed friends and boyfriends after her, jitterbugging in the living room and trying out new steps to Bill Haley and the Comets' Rock Around the Clock, while I sat on the couch in awe of her, drinking it all in. Steph was a girl who knew how to stand up for herself. I remember being at what I think must have been a middle school musical event where she had a trumpet solo. I remember she was standing on the stage in front of a curtain all by herself, and as she played, she must have hit a wrong note or maybe 2 or 3. And there was a bit of nervous laughter like that in the audience. She stopped playing, put the trumpet back at her side, looked out at all of us and said, "This isn't easy, you know." I don't recall what we in the audience did, but I do recall that Mom and Dad told that story over and over with sort of delight and pride and a kind of wonder, like, do you believe this kid? Music was a constant source of joy in Steph's life. All music, classical, rock and roll, jazz, and later folk. We girls were often divided into 2 groups. Carol and Steph shared one room, and Jan and I shared the other. And I remember being in our bedroom and listening and hearing Steph in the other room sort of bopping around singing to some sort of jazzy improvisation thing with no words, just syllables. And driving in the car when something wonderful would come on, she wouldn't just listen. She would have one hand on the steering wheel, and with the other she'd be conducting Beethoven's Fifth. Steph was Miss Popularity in high school, the homecoming queen who always had a string of boyfriends following her, sometimes several at a time. And they were persistent. She would drop one and go on to the next, but the one she dropped wouldn't stay dropped. They kept popping up, trying to get out. Mom and Dad often liked the old ones, and they would try to cover for her, not letting her boyfriends know she was out with someone else. The trail of boyfriends ended, though, when she met Phil. He was different from all the others, more outgoing, fun, and so obviously smitten with every bit of Steph. Mom and Dad were definitely suspicious of this older man by 5 years. He was always smiling, teasing, and making jokes, and I think Mom thought he was a little bit of a playboy. But he was smitten with Steph and was not shy about it. One time I remember Steph came out of her room with a coat on, ready to go out, and walked over to stand in front of Phil. He was seated at a chair in our dining room. She stood there and he opened her coat like this and went, "Nice." I was so bug-eyed at this. I heard Mom's shocked intake of breath. Our house didn't do things like that. It wasn't long before Phil won both Mom and Dad over, and he became one of their favorite people. Making things fun and seeing the positive side of everything was a hallmark of Steph's personality. She on the way from the church to the reception on her wedding day into something fun, saying as we drove into the gas station, "This is so great, it's going to be a memory we talk about forever." Or turning mistakes and predicaments into funny stories that she, and in later years she and Jan, were the punchline. So we often talk about that side of her and tell these funny stories. She was only 10 when our little sister Jan was born, and she just gathered her up and started mothering her, and she never stopped. And that was the kind of love and kindness she showed and showered on everyone. Yes, the people she loved, but also just people. When we talked about religion, she would say, "God is love." And she lived her life making that presence known in the world. So goodbye, my dear Sister Steph. You were the best. We sisters often joke that you were Mom's favorite, and I'm pretty sure that was true. But we didn't really mind, because you were our favorite too.
Thank you. I would like to invite Greg forward to share his reflections and poem.
What a beautiful church. This place has real memories for me. Kristen's right over there. No, in here. We held our Friday service here. And my mom's. It's a wonderful place to be. When Mom passed, it all happened so fast. None of us were prepared to lose her. She was so vibrant and full of life. The week before she became ill, we'd gone out to dinner and see the musical Wicked, celebrate my daughter's birthday. The next day, she went to the store. They spent the better part of an hour choosing just the right one for all the things she planned to do in the coming year. It was so unexpected and hard to accept. But when she was in the hospital, she told me, "You know, if this doesn't turn out well, I feel like I've had a good run." I think about those words and they give me comfort. Now, the first poem I was going to read was already read. She's gone. The hardens. But Shreya saved the day. And she mentioned there's a similar poem in the back of our program. So I will read that instead. Farewell, my friends. It was beautiful as long as it lasted, the journey of my life. I have no regrets whatsoever, save the pain I'll leave behind. Those dear hearts who love and care, and the heavy but sweet, ever moist eyes. The smile, in spite of the lump in the throat and the strings pulling the heart and soul. The strong arms that held me up when my own strength let me down. Each morsel that I was fed hearts of those you love, remember them. You never die. My mom loved nature. At our family house on Sterling Road, we had a back deck that overlooked an old cranberry bog that had long ago turned into a meadow. One year, my dad decided to enclose part of the deck to create a sunroom. And the two of them would sit there every morning, sipping coffee and watching the wildlife and the tall grasses below. They really liked that. When my mom and dad decided to downsize, they bought a condo with a view of the woods and a cranberry bog off in the distance, just like they had on Sterling Road. On the morning of the day my mom died, I sat next to her bed and held her hand. As most of you know, she couldn't see well anymore, so I described to her all that was going on outside. It was a beautiful morning. The sky was blue. The daffodils and sepia were blooming bright yellow. The birds were flying about. And a hint of green was emerging from the leaf buds on the trees. She smiled. It was quite a moment for me. Spring was springy, and she got to enjoy it one last time. The second poem we're going to read is by Robert Frost. It's about the first signs of spring, but also the impermanence of all living things. It's called Nothing Old Can Stay. Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaves to flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down today, nothing gold instead. I love you.
I'd like to invite Catherine LaRoche forward to share her eulogy.
Hi. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Catherine, one of Stephanie's youngest grandchildren and the daughter of her son Gregory. As we reflect on and celebrate the life that Stephanie led, I want to share some of my favorite memories of her as a grandmother. Every time Grammy showed up to the house, there were a few things that you knew you could count on. The Tic Tacs that she bought for every grandchild, her portioned out raisin bran and instant coffee, and long talks in the morning. Grammy was someone you could talk to for hours. In these early morning conversations, shared over hot coffee, I gained knowledge and perspective on school, friends, and boys. With every situation I asked for advice on, she refreshed my perspective by always encouraging me to give grace to the others involved. Because of her thoughtfulness and her candor, Grammy was one of the most influential people in my life. In the way that I learned determination from my parents, I learned gratitude from Grammy. One memory I always look upon with most love was when we took our family reunion trip to the U.S. Virgin Islands. On Christmas morning of that vacation, which was my first Christmas away from home, I loved to make a big deal out of it. I was greeted with an ornament and scratch-off lottery tickets. Grammy had gotten a gift for all of us there.
Jeff Ford to share his eulogy.
Doesn't go by in the blink of an eye. I wanted to talk about my mom as a mother, and as a person, and as a friend. As a mother, all three of us always felt so taken care of. And it came out in a lot of different ways. One that I remember the most was for us when we were little kids, Sunday night was bath night. And we'd all take a bath, and then we'd go in the TV room, and we took turns sitting in Mom's lap while she had a hair dryer. And it was the most amazing thing. It literally was in a suitcase from the 50s, I think. And it had this long hose that came out of it. And we would sit in her lap and she would brush her hair and dry her hair while we watched Neutral Omaha Wild Kingdom. As a family all night. And it was just such a warm and loving thing. It was incredible. And she cared for us in so many ways. And one of the ones that we were just talking about last night was when one of us would get hurt, it was like she was living it too. She'd go, and so you really felt like she understood. She wasn't saying, "Oh, you'll be fine." Like she felt it in herself. And it came out in another way because she always made things fun for us as kids. That was one of the ways that she loved us. Like when she would take me to the grocery store, the first thing she did, she'd sit her down in the grocery cart, and we'd drive over, and she'd get me a little box of animal crackers to keep me happy while she spent all this time shopping. Or they'd take us to the drive-in, and we'd all pile in the station wagon with our sleeping bags and pillows, and Mom would pop a grocery bag full of popcorn and a 2-liter thing of Coke or whatever it was, and it was fantastic. Or the little things like she made our sandwiches, she would cut it into triangles and then make like little butterflies so it was fun for us. And Lainey was saying that after the birth of their first child, my mom said, "I have one piece of advice for you. Let them eat a little bit of the cookie." And I think that kind of encapsulated who she was. She just really wanted kids to have fun. She also kind of always had our back, and she was always encouraging us and not criticizing. And so at the end of the report card time, she would just say, "Did you do the best you could?" That's all she ever said. She never, even though she was a teacher, my dad was a teacher, she never criticized us if the grade wasn't great. It's just as long as you did as good as you could do, that was exactly what she wanted. And that was plenty. And after every report card, they would take us all to the tiki board, which for us was wildly exotic. It's like none of that. And we got to get a poo-poo platter as an appetizer. I just, you ever think, like, who decided to name an appetizer? I don't understand. And it didn't matter, one of the times we went to do that, I was being very precocious, let's put it that way. And my mom didn't want to make a big scene, so she just kind of kept looking, at me, and I was just a little shit. And finally I said, shoe polish, scissors, hairbrush, stamps, nail clippers, lipstick, Band-Aids, a sewing kit, Neosporin, mouthwash, and Apple always, deodorant, paper napkins, peanut butter crackers, sunscreen, and if we were just leaving for the day, she'd have a Diet Coke for herself as well in there. Mom was also always all about family. It was our whole world. And as Christy said recently, she said Auntie Steffi was the emotional center of the extended family. And you didn't have to earn her love, which I thought was really a wonderful way to put it. And for her, her entire world is wonderful grandchildren that you've seen here. I remember when her first grandchild was born, which was my daughter Kasha. And a couple of days after she was born, Mom and Dad flew out. And I remember Joe and I were sitting in the living room, or standing in the living room, and the door burst open, and my mom went, "Oh!" She walked right past me, walked right up to Joe, and I remember Joe was standing there like, "My baby." But for Mom, love was a verb. She was expressing it always. It wasn't just a feeling. And you'll see that for those of you who are coming to the reception. We've got a little bit of a slideshow, and like half the pictures are of her with one of her grandchildren, just absolutely beaming as they're doing some kind of activity. She would, fly across the country to see Thea perform in the Nutcracker, or drive out to see Max in one of his swim meets, or baking with Catherine at home. And she loved to hear Sky, who we just heard, playing music, as well as his cousin Cole. In fact, I wanted to mention that song you just heard. Sky played for Mom a few days before she died, and she was absolutely beaming. She was really, really moved by that. He also was playing that on her guitar, by the way. And with my first daughter, my first child, Kasha, she would just love to sit and hear what Kasha had to say about things, because Kasha was very kind of opinionated as a 4 or 5-year-old. And the first time they had a kind of a grandparents' day, and the kids were asked to introduce their grandparent with some kind of descriptive words, and Kasha said, "My grandmother is very old and wrinkly." One of the things that I'm most thankful for was that Kasha and Dakota flew across the country and brought Valerie, my mom's first and only grandchild, with her. Great-grandchild, excuse me, thank you. And that was an unbelievable experience, because my mom was very, very weak at that point. But when we put that baby in her lap, I don't think I've ever seen her smile that much. She was absolutely beaming. It was an incredible sight. Next, I'd like to talk about my mom as a person, outside of just being a mother. She lived by what I would call the Kubiak Creed, which is, it encompasses a whole bunch of things, but one of the key ones was never saying anything about someone that you wouldn't say to that person. And she really instilled that in all of us kids. And I still remember vividly when I was about 7 or 8. I didn't even understand what racism was. But I had heard a joke at school, and I came home and told it to her, and it was a racist joke. And about the way they look at you when they fart in the living room. Really? That's exactly how she would look. You knew she was on there. And she also I had just a tremendous amount of respect for this, and I've witnessed it many times throughout life. No matter what, she would never, ever, ever refuse a cold margarita. And a couple of people have mentioned how moms had love for kind of everybody and kind of a concern for people. And I actually was thinking about the same thing, and I was thinking about different things that she had done throughout her life. But the thing that actually came to me that perfectly encapsulated everything in 3 words. Shortly before she died, she had at that point stopped eating and drinking. And early in the morning, I came to her and I said, Mom, how are you doing? And I kind of leaned forward and she said, good, and you? She was concerned about how I felt. But she had this kind of personal quirk that was adorable, at times frustrating. You would think that someone who was nearly blind and saw color differently in one eye versus the other eye would kind of give up on color and not worry about it, but it was the most important thing to her was whether something matched. And that manifested itself in a lot of ways, but one that I remember was when they bought the condo here in Cape Cod, I flew out to essentially become a general contractor, where we did a major renovation. I'm talking moving walls, new floors, lighting. We gutted the kitchen, we were rebuilding everything. And along the way, we came to the point where we had to pick out the appliances. And so me, my dad, and my mom were going to different appliance stores. And one of the salespeople just kind of offhandedly said, well, there's different shades of stainless steel. And my mom started going like this. And I remember my dad just looked over at me. And he said, the next 3 days, going back and forth to the appliance places. And to this day, the dishwasher, the only way that dishwasher is in there is because I convinced her that her friends were not going to give her a hard time about it because they were on opposite ends of the kitchen. You wouldn't know. The other thing about my mom as a person was she was a badass. She used to say she comes from hearty Polish stock. And to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, she went in for some dental work. I think it was a new crown or something like that. I think they might have to put a screw in. And there's the dentist, with a socket wrench in her mouth. And she was like, I don't need Novocaine. And at one point the dentist was going, are you sure it's yours? and her response was, yeah, this is my opportunity to practice being Buddhist. Incredible thing. And the eye surgeries that she went through, I'm not actually even sure how many, I think it was 12. And the eye surgeries, she had to be awake with her eyes open as they were cutting and sewing her eyeball. And she never complained about it ever. It was really something I couldn't do myself. And her badassery, in my opinion, also kind of manifests itself in her fearlessness. So for example, when Kasha and Dakota were getting married, she flew out for the wedding, and Carrie was sitting near her at dinner, and he's telling her, okay, so your wine is at 1 o'clock, the glass is at 2 o'clock, the water's at 2 o'clock, your bread plate's at 9 o'clock. But then when it came time to dance, she was tearing up the dance floor. Not concerned about it at all. And Jan tells the story. One time they went to BJ's to get a rotisserie chicken. And they got to for those of you who don't know, BJ's is kind of like a Costco. It's a huge warehouse. And they got to the front entrance, and Jan said, I'm really tired. I think I want to sit for a few minutes. Mom says, it's okay, I'll take the card. She takes the card. Now, she's legally blind at this point. She takes the card, charges all the way to the back of the store, and then comes back, makes her way all the way back and said, is this a good chicken? especially when her eyesight started to go. And you treated her with such love and such caring, and it meant the world to her. And I know you guys were best friends as well. So thank you for that. And in times like this, there's one doctor that I turn to when I feel like everybody else has failed me, one that I can always count on. And I wanted to just say a quote from that doctor. He said, "Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened." Dr. Seuss.
I'd like to invite Shreya forward to share her eulogy.
When I was little, I looked to my mom for spiritual guidance. We were so strongly connected in our heart. I wasn't one of those kids who rebelled against their mom. I loved being my mom's company and wanted to be included in her activities, whether it was going to the gym or bike riding with her friends, marathon shopping, or sitting next to her on the couch. One of my earliest memories of her is kneeling by my bed, saying the Lord's Prayer with her. But those prayers stopped when I was still small and my mom left the Catholic Church. When I asked her about God, she said that when she thought about God, she added another O, because God was everything that was good. To me, Mom also was everything that was good. Being with her felt peaceful and safe. There were times when I felt particularly connected to my mom, especially in the evenings when she would practice playing guitar. She would start by playing simple folk songs like, "What Can You Do with a Drunken Sailor?" or "Rock of My Soul in the Bosom of Abraham." And then when her fingers warmed up, she would start to practice a soul hymn. It was a more difficult song to play than the others, and it was a song that she came back to learn again and again while I was growing up. Sometimes I sang with her, or Auntie Jen would play second guitar. But my favorite was to leave my door open when I went to sleep and drift off listening to her play. I felt heaven inside, safe and connected to my mom. Although she left the church, she didn't stop searching for God. She read many books on spirituality and self-help. I remember her watching the entire miniseries called The Power of Myth with Joseph Campbell, who was known for being a literature professor specializing in comparative religion and mythology. That series went right over my head. But Mom was on the edge of her seat, taking notes about the hero's journey shared throughout the world's mythologies. She was searching for a spiritual framework that made sense to her. I don't think she expected to find it in an Indian guru, but she did. While I was away at college, she was beginning her yoga practice. She found peace and clarity in chanting and meditation, and resonated with the teaching she heard in talks by her Maitri Vasananda. I'm grateful to my mom for all the hard work she put in to find a spiritual path, because after I graduated, I started practicing city yoga with my mom. At first, I joined her because I wanted to spend time with her, and I thought it was exercise. It wasn't. It was a spiritual practice of finding God inside through chanting and meditation. But I continued going with her because I trusted the wisdom of her heart and wanted to see what she had found. We went to retreats together, and as our understanding grew, we shared our spiritual experiences with each other. And although I didn't think it could, our heart connection grew even stronger. Everything you see in this world has come from God and eventually merges back into Him. Because of their different temperaments, people follow different paths to God. However, God is within. He's perceived through meditation and knowledge. People follow different paths because of their different temperaments, but they reach Him alone, just as rivers reach the ocean. Man's heart is the true temple of God. Since the temple was built, God never lived in it. Since the heart was created, God never left it. To see God in everything as well as oneself is the greatest knowledge, greatest meditation, greatest religion, and the highest path to God. As a river merges into the ocean and becomes the ocean, one day it will merge into the ocean of God's bliss. There are so many nuances to the experience of God that Mom never tired of being seeker and learning something new. Even while she was in hospice. She was listening to a book by Ron on dying called Walking Each Other Home. She wanted to be prepared for the journey. In the dark of the night, we could hear Mom's audiobook. On the very first page, Ron says, "If I'm going to die, the best way to prepare is to quiet my mind and open my heart. If I'm going to live, the best way to prepare is to quiet my mind and open my heart." Later in the book, he went much deeper. He said, "You do not have a soul. You are a soul, and you have a body. The body is merely a container for your soul for a while." Mom still had big plans for the future. She wanted to see Pia dance at the pavilion, go to Catherine's high school graduation, and celebrate Lorna Pacific's wedding. She wanted to watch Valerie learn to walk. But her body was failing, and it was Joyce said that Steph had her first connection with me when I was 10. It actually was 3, it might have been before that. But we have a photograph of the 4 girls my father took a picture of all 4 of us at York Beach, Maine, and Steph had me on her hip when it looks like I was about 3 or 4 years old. Steph was always so inclusive. When I was 10, she took me to the Tom Rush concert and always welcomed me to listen to new LP records with her and her college friends. While she liked the Kingston Trio and Peter, Paul, and Mary, she loved West Side Story and Porgy and Bess. But she truly loved jazz, especially Astrud Gilberto with Stan Getz and Dave Brubeck with Paul Desmond. Having played the trumpet herself in Scouts and Band, she was also fond of Dizzy Gillespie and Louis Armstrong, especially when Louis sang and played When the Saints Go Marching In. And I just have to tell you that in about the past year, Steph has had a regimen of marching around the house. You know how the watches have those circles, and she would fill up her circles, and she would take the flute and march. Every single day she would march. And when she was singing, when the saints were marching in, she would do it out loud. Well, my sister Carol describes Steph as so compassionate. This happened one time we were up there visiting, and Steph had been talking to her for quite some time. Carol had a lot of things that she was dealing with, and Steph left the room for a minute, and that's when she said to me, "Oh, she is so compassionate," and that is exactly what she was. She had a gift for making people feel good about themselves, regardless of their differences. Everyone
storm. And it would like really frustrate Joe. Because she's like, it's like, I can clean the keyboard. She's expressing her love, just doing it. And it's just really felt really good. So she took on Steve and I, and did all that, but she also did it to her parents. I'm sure, headed the effort to have Granny and Grandpa come live on the Cape. So she, all of those years, she was caring for her parents for, I don't know, at least 20 years. And it was just amazing to me how she was just always full of that love. And then, I moved on, moved to the West Coast, and then moved back east, back to Provincetown, and, she was here in IMS, and it was just like the best thing, always so welcoming, like, just, come visit, and just so much joy and acceptance and grounding, good, solid, strong mooring to the Cape. I will miss her here. And the Cape will miss her, family obviously will miss her. It's wonderful.
My name's Chris. I'm Trey's husband. We got married this year, and for me, like Steph and Phil, I was getting married. Is just welcoming part of the family, and Steph really is a mother to me, and I love my mother, but she's very rigid. Stephanie is just all about the hugs, and the warmth and the love. And recent story, she had decided to move out of the condo in Florida, and move everything back here. Is it okay? And so we were there. She was obviously with Jeff and Greg, and Steph, and we were clearing everything up. And at one stage, she was in the bedroom, going through a lot of stuff. And so I volunteered to come in and help, and we were sort of pulling things out, and I was describing, this is a pencil. And then I pulled out, I was like, okay, there's a brown packet of, looks like old candies. She's like, throw them out. Candy? Candy is always good. So I'm like, I tried one. I'm like, it's not bad. She's like, okay, I'll try one. She was eating away. She's like, oh, these are my gummies. So needless to say, for the next 2 or 3 hours, we went through every single thing in that room. Describe. This is a book. It's a book about this. And she usually does a story around the book, or whatever the item is, and whether to keep it or toss it. And I just remember just us giggling away, and so much laughter and life.
So my name is Peg Regan. I worked at the high school with Stephanie for 24 years in the English department. She was sort of my mentor when I first came up to the high school. One of the things that she did for me and my daughter was teach us how to meditate. I have been trying for many years, walking around ponds, smoking a little pot, whatever, trying to figure out what it meant to meditate. And Stephanie said to me, well, come with me to the City Yoga Center and try it out. So I did, to go with her, and I sat next to her, and they just said, okay, and now we will meditate. I'm like, what, no warm-up? And she just put her hand on my arm, and for 10 minutes, it was like the world disappeared. We were just in this beautiful state of meditation, and honestly, it was the first time I'd ever experienced that true, pure meditation. And because my daughter had just been born, she invited Emily to come, who was like a year and a half old or 2 years old, and Emily would come on Sundays and for chanting and for everything. And even when we moved out, our family moved out to California, we still followed Gourmet all around California and had that wonderful, wonderful bond with Stephanie. So she was my spiritual friend. She was the person who brought me back to God in her way. And I'm eternally grateful to her. Thank you.
I'm sure all of you have a memory or an anecdote about Stephanie that you're holding in your heart. And I encourage you to share these, to write them down and send them to the family, because it is in our memories and in our remembrances, in the laughter, in the jokes, in the time spent together, that we remain alive. The 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the children's book, No Matter What, by Debbie Gliori, Small says, "But what about when you're dead and gone? Will you love me then? Does love go on?" Large held Small's hand, snug, as they looked out at the night, at the moon in the dark and the stars shining bright. Small, look at the stars, how they shine and glow, yet some of the stars died long ago. Still they shine in the evening skies. Love, like starlight, never dies. And Antoine Saint-Exupéry wrote, "In one of the stars I shall be living, in one of them I shall be laughing, and so it will be as if all the stars were laughing when you look at the sky at night, and there's sweetness in the laughter of the stars and in the memories of those we love." An Inuit legend suggests that perhaps they are not stars in the sky, but rather openings where our loved ones shine down to let us know they are happy. I like this idea that the ones we are love are shining down upon us. As an unknown person wrote, "Stars proclaim through the darkest night that we belong to the universe. We look at them as an expression of eternity, sending us light from the past, promising that our light goes on beyond the little years we live, curving back to us somehow." The Reverend Greg Ward asserted, "One thing is for certain, no one, not one of us entering this world can escape the cost of living. The price we pay is this: to live in this world, we must accept that someday we will have to die. To love what is alive, we must accept having to lose what we have made precious through our care. To be fully and fiercely human, we must accept having to be breakable and sometimes broken. And when we are broken, we can sometimes forget to remember that the light has not gone out. The light is curving back to us. The light which was Stephanie and which she shined on all of you will continue on as long as you keep igniting it. When those we love die, we often wonder, what happens to them? Where did their spirit go? Will I see them again? Is there a heaven? While I do not know the answers to those questions, I do know that Stephanie's immortality rests in each of you. She will live on in the stories you tell of her to each other, to your grandchildren and theirs, through her friends and their friends, in the lessons you repeat to the next generation, and most importantly, in the love you share. C.W. Ledbetter, in To Those Who Mourn, reminds us that while the body may be transient, the love we share shall never end. For that is the real truth. Woman is a soul and has a body. The body is not the woman. It's only the clothing of the woman. What you call death is the laying aside of a worn-out garment, and it is no more the end of the woman than it is the end of you when you remove your sorrowful, look again in your heart, and you will see that in truth you are laughing for that which has been your delight. I would like to invite Laura Snyder forward to play Amazing Grace. We are all going to sing it. It's in your hymn. That this great hymnal should be in front of you or near you. And it's number 205. Please rise in body or spirit. I bow to you and hold up my lamp.